An accomplished interior designer's lack of desire to have children is met with resistance from her family, leading her to try experimental treatment that unleashes unforeseen horrors. In a park at night, a distressed woman takes her own life, and her lifeless hand lets go of a small metal cog. The following day, at a party, esteemed interior designer Ella Patel overhears ghastly stories from a group of mothers about their experiences with childbirth. When her friend Shauna boasts that Ella will be designing her nursery, she joins the conversation amid a flurry of job requests. However, Fiona, Shauna's partner, informs them that the designer is too busy working on her dream project. As they talk, Ella notices a boy climbing a tree and tries to bring it to everyone's attention, but is interrupted when Shauna invites her to feel the baby's kick. Ella's refusal prompts Shauna to announce that the designer doesn't want children, and she becomes inundated by questions. In her mind, the interior designer considers all the things a happy, successful career woman can do in her free time. Ella snaps back to reality when the boy falls from the tree. Later, Ella's surgeon husband sends her to Dr. Weber for her annual checkup. During the examination, Weber inquires about her plans to start a family, to which the designer responds that she doesn't want kids. Ella wonders if she's different from most women who have a biological fertility clock ticking, to which the doctor suggests that maybe her clock is just broken. Afterwards, Ella visits her usual home decor store and the owner, Harvey, proudly displays the copies of the magazine she's featured in. As she happily posts it on social media, her feed is filled with her friends and their babies, which quickly puts her in a somber mood. That evening, she and her husband Aiden visit her father Joseph for dinner. While Ella prepares the food, the men bond over the Jewish love for free things. They're having a wonderful time until Joseph starts hinting about their lack of children. He laments their dwindling family line, saying their ancestors didn't crawl out of the ocean as fish nor survive the concentration camps just for their family line to die with her. Uncomfortable, Ella storms out. At home, Ella doesn't want children, but she enjoys the act of making them. And this time she wants to do it without protection. Seeing Aiden's surprise, she explains that she's tired of feeling judged by society for not having kids. Aiden expresses his reservations and assures her that he's happy even without kids, but she struggles to believe him. He states that they both knew she'd eventually run out of time since her fertility is decreasing, especially now that she's about to be 38 years old, and that it's something they can't fix. Hearing those words, Ella recalls her appointment with Dr. Weber, who suggested that her broken clock can be fixed with hormone treatment and offered her a chance to join an ongoing clinical trial. The idea stays with her, and the next week, she decides to participate in the trial. Ella leaves under the guise of working on her dream project. On the way to the facility, she tells her employer that she's taking a break to focus on personal matters, putting her career at risk. Ella arrives at the facility and soon meets Dr. Elizabeth Simmons, who explains what will happen during her stay. The doctor likens Ella's condition to depression, which can be treated with a newly engineered synthetic hormone medication paired with 10 days of cognitive behavioral therapy. Although the patient is skeptical about what can be achieved in such a time frame, the doctor elaborates that the program is intense and that she'll also have weekly check-ins afterwards to monitor progress. Before Elizabeth leaves, she gives Ella a pep talk and hands over her first dose of hormone medications. After dining alone, Ella reads Aiden's messages and lies that she has poor reception at the project site. During her therapy session the following day, Ella discusses her aversion to children, and Elizabeth proposes that she might have a pregnancy phobia. She then suggests that they examine images together to uncover the root of Ella's phobia. When the images are laid out, Ella reports seeing a very tall woman, a family of dead spiders, and a grandfather clock. When asked about the meaning behind these images, Elizabeth announces that they'll tackle it the next day and hands her patients medication. That night, Ella kills a spider that turns out to be a hallucination. The following therapy session, Ella elaborates on her visions. She talks about the grandfather coffin, an heirloom from her grandparents that survived the German concentration camps. Elizabeth remarks on Ella's Freudian slip of calling the clock a coffin and points out that, to her, it symbolizes the end of their family line, with no heirs to inherit it. The explanation clarifies the designer's thoughts, saying the spiders are also a reference to how Jews were dehumanized as insects to be exterminated. The doctor comments that Ella's hesitancy to have children is due to the cruelty and injustices present in the world. However, the designer is at a loss regarding the tall woman. At the end of the session, based on Ella's blood analysis, the doctor suggests a permanent implant in conjunction with the hormone tablets. That night, bothered by the clock in her room, Ella removes its battery, but it continues ticking. Unnerved, she flees outside and meets another patient who offers her a cigarette, telling her that things get easier after going through the tank. Once alone, Ella is startled by a tall silhouette inside the building, causing her to run back into her room. To calm her down, she contacts Aiden. She notices her reflection on a nearby mirror and sees her bloated stomach, making her fantasize about being pregnant, which puts her in the mood for a steamy call. The next day, Ella gets to experience the tank firsthand. Elizabeth explains that it's a sensory deprivation tank with additional features tailored to help the user overcome their mental blocks. Once alone, the designer gets into the tank, which is half filled with water as she floats and finds a monitor inside. The monitor displays gruesome images accompanied by the doctor talking about fixing a broken biological clock. The disturbing images soon become too much for Ella and she's frantic for release. Finally, the hatch opens and Ella is relieved. However, her relief turns into fear when she sees the tall woman. In her haste to flee, she slips and hits her head on a table. Moments later, she wakes up with Elizabeth tending to her, assuring her that paramedics are on their way. The doctor explains that Ella had an adverse reaction to the treatment, though it was meant to be shocking. The patient asks about the tall woman who opened the hatch, but Elizabeth shows footage that it was a short nurse who released her. The harrowing experience causes Ella to lash out, saying that the treatment is a sham. Elizabeth maintains that the treatment is effective, pointing out that Ella has just watched a birthing video unfazed. The doctor asserts that the therapy is fixing her mind, while the medicine is fixing her body. When the paramedics arrive, Elizabeth gives the designer the option to end the treatment prematurely and leave with them. Despite the hallucinations, the determined woman proceeds with the treatment and implant. The doctor inserts the implant in and then gives Ella her hormone medications, instructing her not to sleep with Aiden for 3 weeks. After congratulating her on completing the treatment, the doctor reminds her about the weekly follow-up calls before sending Ella home. Along the way home, Ella sees the tall woman again, but she wills herself to ignore it, unaware that it was merely a person needing help. Shortly after, she gets sick and runs out to throw up by a cliff. When the designer arrives home, her dog doesn't recognize her. Aiden greets her with a hug and she prepares a meal. However, Ella's preferences have changed significantly as she barely cooks several sunny-side-up eggs and eats the raw yolks. During this, Elizabeth's words from the video keep repeating in her mind. That night, Aiden tries to spend quality time with his wife, but she begs off, citing exhaustion from the trip. She then complains about the temperature and takes her medications in private. Still feeling uncomfortable, she resorts to using a raw egg to relieve herself. The following night, Aiden and their friends celebrate Ella's 38th birthday. During the celebration, Ella tells Shauna that she'll begin working on the nursery the next day. As they chat, the designer asks to touch her friend's belly. To everyone's surprise, Ella gets comfortable and starts humming to the baby. Suddenly, the designer sees a tarantula on Shauna's stomach. She slowly grabs a nearby book and motions to smash the bug, and fortunately, Aiden quickly stops her. Everyone is frightened by her behavior, and Ella excuses herself, claiming she feels ill. Before leaving, the designer assures her friend that she'll come back to do the nursery. The following day at Harvey's, Ella struggles to find the proper paint colors. Harvey assures her that the store's layout hasn't changed. However, the entire world looks colorless to the designer. Just then, Ella receives a call from the doctor, informing her that it's her first check-in. The designer responds positively, saying that she's feeling more inclined to have children. Elizabeth is pleased and asks if she has experienced any side effects. Ella hesitates before confessing that she has been feeling uncomfortably hot. The doctor says that it's normal for adjusting hormonal levels and advises her to increase the dose. Then the designer ends the call without disclosing her diminishing ability to see color. A week passes and Ella works on the nursery despite struggling with visual and auditory hallucinations. One day, the designer forgets her medications at her friend's nursery, and before leaving, she tells Shauna not to peek inside as the finished reveal will be a surprise. Soon after, Ella and her husband go to have dinner at Joseph's house. At her father's doorstep, she receives her second check-in with Elizabeth. After dinner, they gather around to look at old family albums. Ella is disturbed when Joseph shows them a picture of her emaciated grandmother looking like the tall, ominous woman. The shock of the image, combined with the discomfort of the ticking grandfather clock, causes the uncomfortable woman to lash out in disgust. Her behavior infuriates Joseph, who starts tearing up their family pictures, blaming her for wasting their family line. Distraught, Ella walks away in tears. Later that night, Ella jolts awake to Elizabeth's voice reminding her not to miss her medication. She panics when she realizes she left her pills behind and rushes to Shauna's house to retrieve them. The pregnant woman follows her to the nursery and is shocked to see an unhinged visualization of her friend's hallucinations around the room. The stress triggers Shauna's labor, resulting in a chaotic scene as Ella, lost in her delusions, starts to bathe in her friend's broken water. She starts getting aggressive, causing Fiona to throw out the baby-crazed designer. Not long after, Joseph calls his daughter, reporting that he fell and needs assistance. Therefore, Ella rushes to her father's house and helps him. Joseph attempts to talk to her, but the ticking grandfather clock is too loud, agitating his daughter. In a frenzy, the unhinged woman grabs tools and begins dismantling the family heirloom despite her father's pleas. Throughout this, Elizabeth's voice continues to play in her head. Once the clock is silent, the designer asks Joseph to repeat what he was saying. Afterwards, she heads home. Later, Aiden arrives home and is worried about the state of his wife. She tells him that her father fell, though he's okay, but he's mad at her for destroying the grandfather clock. Aiden promises to check on his father-in-law after they tend to her injuries. As they wash her bloody hands, Ella finally expresses her desire for children. Aiden believes that she truly wants one, and after 2 weeks of no contact, he can barely control himself. Then they get started right there on the kitchen counter. However, it's too early for Ella to fully heal from her implant, which injures Aiden. He shouts in pain that he's bleeding and instructs her to get a gauze from his bag. Despite her panicked state, she recognizes the logo on the bag being Elizabeth's clinic and demands to know his connection to the fertility doctor. Helpless, Aiden confesses to meeting Elizabeth at a convention. He reveals that he asked Weber to present the idea so that Ella could decide on her own if she wants to participate. The revelation enrages Ella, and she rushes off to the facility, discarding her medication along the way. Soon she finds Elizabeth in the cafeteria and demands the removal of her implant. The doctor informs her that the implant can't be removed without damaging her reproductive system. Bluffing, Ella asserts that she doesn't care, but the doctor challenges the claim, confident that her program works. As the other participants watch, Ella suddenly breaks down in tears and admits that she wants children but her marriage is falling apart. The doctor reassures the sorrowful woman with a laugh that she doesn't need a husband to become pregnant and offers to refer her to an IVF specialist. Placated, Ella follows Elizabeth to her office to clean up. However, they pass by a delusional participant, cradling an imaginary baby. Ella then comes to a realization that her own desire for children is also imaginary. She announces that their desperation to conform has driven them to endure the side effects of the program. Despite Ella's demands to have the implant removed, the doctor firmly refuses. Undeterred, the designer takes matters into her own hands. When the doctor tries to stop her, Elizabeth manifests as the tall woman. However, Ella is no longer scared and hits the figure with a food tray, making the doctor fall. The other participants watch in horror as Ella forcibly removes the implant, and immediately, vivid colors flood back into her world. The implant, a small metal cog, falls into a pool of blood as the designer flees upon hearing the approaching police sirens. As Ella drives away, she's soon pursued by the authorities. She pulls over at a familiar spot on the road, and as the authorities surround her, she answers Aiden's call and snaps at him to never contact her again. In response, Aiden reveals that he called the police after checking on Joseph. His words trigger a sudden recollection of earlier events. After Ella helped her father up when he fell, Joseph shared that he had visions of their entire family, including the fish that crawled out of the sea, and he believed they were coming to collect him. However, he was refused because of what he'd said to Ella. He apologized for putting pressure on her, assuring his daughter that what mattered most was her happiness. However, his words only caused his daughter distress because she felt that she'd already thrown away that happiness in the pursuit of bearing children. As she reached for tools to silence the annoying clock, Joseph stood in front of it, trying to stop her. Finally, it dawns on Ella that her frenzied dismantling of the clock was actually her unhinged self attacking her father. Therefore, she surrenders to the police. But as they take her into custody, she bolts and jumps off the cliff. When Ella awakens, she finds herself lying on a rock with calm waves washing against it. Through her tears, she sees a vision of her first ancestor, the fish that crawled out of the sea.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.